You ever have one of those moments where you think you're in a movie? You know, the romantic kind. The kind where the music swells, a guy stands at an airport terminal holding flowers, and the girl of his dreams walks into view. Her eyes light up. They run to each other. Slow motion, the works. Yeah, that was me. Except my scene didn't end with a kiss. It ended with betrayal in high definition. It was a Friday afternoon, JFK Airport, Terminal 4. I stood near the international arrivals gate holding a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite. I had shaved, ironed a shirt, even sprayed a little cologne. I don't normally go for the dramatic gestures, but hey, after a month-long work trip, I figured my wife deserved a proper welcome home. Her name? Natalie. Beautiful woman. Dark eyes, strong will, quick wit. The kind of woman who could make you feel 10 feet tall when she was happy with you, or like an unpaid intern in your own marriage when she wasn't. She'd been on a photography tour across Europe, she said. Paris, Florence, Prague. Art and architecture. All very soul-searching and noble. And I bought it. Book, line, and gallery exhibit. I checked my phone. Flight AZ-610 had landed 30 minutes ago. My heart beat faster every time the doors slid open. Passengers spilled out one by one, families reunited, couples embraced. I tightened my grip on the bouquet. And then I saw her. Natalie stepped through those doors in a tan trench coat, hair falling in those effortless waves like some kind of Pinterest dream. Her eyes swept the crowd. I raised the flowers and gave a little wave. She spotted me and paused. Not the kind of pause where someone's surprised in a good way. No, this was the kind of pause that says, "Oh, you're here." Then came the second man. He walked out behind her, taller than me, sunglasses indoors, rolling a matching suitcase in step with hers. He was tanned, smug, and wearing one of those scarves that screams, "I've just discovered espresso and affairs." He reached for her hand, and she gave it to him. They didn't even try to be discreet. He leaned in, whispered something in her ear, and she laughed, like I was the punchline. Like the man holding a bouquet, and a heart full of misplaced loyalty was the setup for their perfect little joke. I stood there frozen. People moved around me, annoyed that I was blocking the path, but I couldn't move. Natalie saw me. She made eye contact. And I swear to you, she smiled. Not warmly. Not guiltily. Just smugly. Like she'd already explained this all to me in some dream I clearly missed. Then, with her hand still in his, she turned and walked away. No goodbye. No, we need to talk. No explanation. Just turned on her heel and strolled off into the terminal like I was some Uber Eats delivery that got the order wrong. That was the day everything changed. But not in the way you might think. See, heartbreak didn't destroy me. It woke me up. You ever try to drive home after having your soul stepped on in public? It's a bit like piloting a submarine with a blindfold on and a hole in the hull, except somehow, you're still worried about using your turn signal. I sat in my car for a long time. The bouquet was in the passenger seat now, drooping like it knew it had been part of a bad plan. I stared at it, thinking, so this is what it feels like to be the guy she walks past. And here's the kicker, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or punch the steering wheel like they do in the movies. I just sat there. Because betrayal like that? It doesn't hit like a train. It seeps in like poison. I went home eventually. The house was clean, too clean. Like she'd vacuumed the guilt away before leaving. Her slippers were still by the door. Her mug was still in the sink. But the scent of her perfume was already fading from the air. I walked into the bedroom and opened her side of the closet. Empty hangers. Like a magic trick. The suitcase I bought her last Christmas? Gone. She hadn't just left me. She'd planned it. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon, sat on the couch, and scrolled through our photos. You know the ones. Birthday dinners. Beach trips. Her looking over her shoulder at me with that fake surprise look she always did for the camera. And slowly, things started clicking. The month-long trip. The way she barely FaceTimed me. The generic captions on her travel posts. Wandering soul globe showing Europe, Africa sparkles, and just me, myself, and my lens. Yeah, well, apparently that lens had a man-shaped reflection in it. I went into our office, hers, mostly. Natalie's command center. I wasn't allowed to touch her things, but at that point, the rules were officially void. The laptop was gone, but the drawer, she forgot the drawer. Or maybe she didn't care. Inside were the usual notebooks, batteries, memory cards, and a hotel key card. Paris. Hotel d'Aubigny. Dated 2 weeks ago. My blood didn't boil. It chilled. That was the weekend she told me she was in the countryside, disconnecting. Turns out, she was reconnecting, just not with me. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to pinpoint the exact moment I'd become background noise in my own life. Was it when she stopped asking about my day? When she started buying that imported tea only he seemed to drink in his Instagram photos? Or maybe it was when she started calling me Logan with that flat, dead tone. Like I was her coworker, not her husband. It didn't matter. What mattered was that she thought she could ghost me with a smile. She thought she could vanish with another man and leave me in the ashes like a disposable match. And that's when something in me pivoted. This wasn't going to be one of those stories where the guy gets cheated on and disappears into therapy and yoga retreats. No. I was going to write a new ending. One she'd never see coming. Now here's where it all snaps into focus. It was the following Wednesday when I finally stopped playing detective and found the evidence that burned the last thread of denial right out of me. See, after discovering that hotel key card, I did what any man with a wounded ego and a subscription to cloud storage would do. I checked the shared drive. Natalie, bless her sloppy digital habits, had linked her phone's photo backup to our home network years ago and forgot about it. And I, in my post-bouquet days, remembered it. So I sat at my desk, opened the cloud folder labeled iPhone Auto Upload, and braced myself like I was defusing a bomb. And in a way, I was. First image, a cathedral in Prague. Beautiful, artistic, thoughtful. Second image, a selfie. Natalie smiling under a bridge. Alone. Innocent. Then the third image hit me. A shot taken in a mirror, Natalie in a robe. Behind her, blurred but unmistakable, stood Captain Sunglasses himself, shirtless, brushing his teeth like he owned the world. Oh, and his hand? Yeah, right on her hip. I didn't even blink. Didn't flinch. Just kept clicking through. More pictures. More angles. A whole carousel of betrayal. One even had a caption. He makes me feel alive again. Alive. That was the word she'd always used when we first got together. Now she was recycling it with him. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. No more doubt. No more hoping I was wrong. Natalie wasn't mine anymore. Hadn't been for a while. She'd just forgotten to return the receipt. I spent the rest of the night listening to voice messages they'd left each other. Yeah, she backed those up too. And let me tell you, nothing makes betrayal hit harder than hearing the woman you love laugh like a teenager over some dude calling her his little Storm. Storm, huh? Well, let me tell you what happens when storms hit the wrong coast. They trigger revenge weather. The next morning, I sent Natalie a text. Simple. Cold. Surgical. Let's talk. Your studio. 7 p.m. Be on time. She replied. Why? I thought you understood. I didn't respond. Because she was about to understand something for the first time in months. This wasn't going to be about begging, or closure, or finding myself. No, this was the beginning of the long game. The kind that ends with the other person wondering how the chessboard flipped while they were too busy gloating. And Natalie? She had no idea that she'd just moved her queen into the middle of a minefield. I arrived at Natalie's studio at 6:55 p.m. sharp, because punctuality isn't just polite, it's powerful. And when you're setting a stage, timing is everything. The place was exactly as I remembered. All white walls and exposed brick, oversized windows trying too hard to prove they belonged to an artist's soul. Photographs lined the space in symmetrical arrogance, portraits of street vendors in Florence, melancholy kids in Budapest, a pigeon mid-flight in Vienna. Art, they'd say. To me, it all looked like alibis. I stood in the center of the gallery, bouquet long forgotten, hands in my jacket pockets, waiting for the ghost of my marriage to arrive. And right on schedule, 7:04 p.m., Natalie walked in. Same trench coat from the airport. Hair pinned up this time, like she didn't want to strand out of place for the execution. She looked at me with those calm, camera-ready eyes and asked, Logan, why are we doing this? No hug. No apology. Not even fake small talk. Straight to strategy. I nodded slowly. Nice to see you too. She let out a sigh, one of those theatrical ones that said, I'm the adult here. I thought we said everything that needed to be said at the airport. Oh, I said nothing, I replied. You walked past me like I was airport security. This is me saying something. She glanced around the room. Look, if you're here to guilt me, don't. I've made peace with my decision. I'm not here to guilt you, Natalie. I'm here to show you something. Her brow furrowed. Show me. I reached into my pocket and handed her an envelope. Thick. Tidy. Professional. She hesitated, then opened it. First came the photos. Printouts from her own cloud backup, high quality. Then the screenshots. Then the hotel receipt. Then, like a final nail in the coffin, a transcript of one of her voice messages to Mr. Sunglasses himself. Natalie's eyes scanned each page, her breath stalling somewhere around the fourth one. "You went through my files," she said, voice low, clipped. I tilted my head. "You went through our marriage." She looked up. "And what do you want from this?" "Revenge." I smiled, but not kindly. "No. That comes later. This? This is the reveal." "Of what?" I walked over to the far wall of her studio. It was blank, clean, waiting. I reached into my bag and pulled out a rolled canvas. With a single flick, I unfurled it and hooked it onto the wall's built-in mounts. Natalie's breath hitched. It was a blown-up image, black and white. Her, standing on a hotel balcony, barely dressed, laughing into a phone. Reflected in the window glass, the unmistakable figure of her lover, blurred but intimate. A photo she'd taken herself. One I pulled from her archive. Framed, centered, magnified. Title etched underneath in sharp Helvetica font. "Exposure." "This is a joke," she whispered. "Oh, it gets better," I said, gesturing behind me. I stepped aside to reveal 4 more canvases lined up on the floor. One by one, I propped them against the wall. All self-portraits. All from her trip. All filled with little details, the ring missing from her finger, the double wine glasses, the shadow of someone just out of frame. "I'm opening this as a private exhibit," I said. "One night only. Invitation only. Your patrons, your friends. No press yet?" Her eyes snapped to mine. "You wouldn't." "I already did. Saturday, 8 p.m. You can't use my work like this." "Correction," I said, tapping the canvas. "These are our files. Backed up on our network. In our shared account. I've simply reframed them. Literally." Her composure cracked just a hair. "This is humiliating." I stepped closer, voice low. "So was walking past me at the airport like I was airport gum stuck to your boot." For a moment, she just stood there, breathing hard. Then, the venom returned. "Are you done?" she asked. I gave her a look that stopped her cold. "No, but you are." I pulled out the second envelope. Legal this time. Divorce papers. Filed. Served. Terms outlined. "I'm not fighting you for the house," I said. "You can keep the studio, too. But the accounts? That's where it gets fun." I've frozen our joint funds. Transferred my shares. Redirected every auto payment that's in my name. "Oh, and your darling Jean-Luc?" "Yeah, I had a PI run him through the system." She blinked. "Why?" "Because someone who spends 10,000 euros in 5 days in Paris probably isn't just living off your photography blog," I said. "Turns out he's been sued twice for financial fraud and uses a fake last name." "Charming." Her face lost color. I leaned in. "So if he's been using your name on the bookings?" "That's your legal exposure, sweetheart." She tried to speak. No sound came out. I took a step back and straightened my jacket. "You wanted excitement. You wanted risk. Well, here's your exhibit. Here's your audience. And here's your exit." I walked to the door, then paused. "Oh, and don't worry. I'm not sticking around Saturday. I don't need to see their faces." She stared at me. "You're a monster," she whispered. I shrugged. "Maybe. But I'm not the one who called a marriage a creative block." I left her there. In her studio. Alone. Surrounded by her own truths, finally printed big enough for her to see them. Saturday night rolled in with the kind of tension you could iron shirts on. The air was sharp, like it knew what was coming. The gallery, Natalie's sacred little shrine to truth through art, was lit just the way she liked it. Moody, curated, carefully imperfect. Except this time, the truth wasn't behind the lens. It was the subject. By 7:45, the space had filled up. Not with strangers, but with her people. The art world crowd, beret-wearing curators, wine-swirling influencers, a few old friends who spoke exclusively in vague metaphors. They smiled when they entered. They murmured appreciation for the wine. They circled the blank wall where the unveiling was scheduled. They didn't know what they were about to see. And Natalie? She was nowhere to be found. Funny how people tend to run late when the spotlight's too honest. I wasn't there physically, I'd made sure of that. But I had someone working the floor. A quiet type with a camera and a press badge from a blog nobody reads but everybody pretends to. My kind of guy. He captured everything. At exactly 8:01, the first canvas was unveiled. Exposure. Gasps. Whispers. You could practically hear the collective inhale. The crowd leaned in, trying to decipher what they were looking at. Then someone muttered, "Is that Natalie?" The second piece came next. Perspective. Another self-portrait. Another hotel room. This time, a glass of champagne, one lipstick mark, and one set of masculine shoes just barely in frame. Then came the third. Displacement. Natalie, seated on a balcony, half smiling. The image taken in a mirror. Reflected in the lens, Mr. Sunglasses. His arm draped around her waist. You'd have to zoom in, but once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. The fourth image was titled simply, Our Room. This one was the quietest. No people. Just a rumpled hotel bed. 2 pillows. 2 wine glasses. A wedding ring sitting alone on the nightstand, out of place, almost forgotten. And then, finally, the 5th canvas. Statement. A printout of the now-famous message Natalie had sent to her lover. He still thinks we're just going through a rough patch. Per baby. There it was, in Helvetica. Clean. Framed. Centered. Brutal. The crowd turned. They whispered. Some looked away out of discomfort. Some stared, hypnotized. One woman burst out laughing, not because it was funny, but because discomfort sometimes wears a mask. My guy caught every reaction on camera. And at 8:23 p.m., the doors opened again. Natalie walked in. Hair tied up. No makeup. Dressed down in a way that screamed, I'm casual, while her eyes screamed, I'm unraveling. She didn't speak. She just froze. 100 eyes turned to her. Conversations halted mid-sentence. And for once, she wasn't holding the camera. She was the subject. Unedited. Unfiltered. Real. She took 3 steps into the gallery, eyes scanning the pieces, chest rising in short, panicked breaths. She looked like she wanted to run, or scream, or disappear through the floor. Instead, she walked up to the first canvas and stared. For 30 seconds, she just stood there. And when she turned back to the crowd, her voice cracked. This wasn't supposed to happen. Someone near the front asked, Did you take these yourself? She blinked. Yes, but not for this. Another person, one of her old photography classmates, said flatly, Then why did you leave them backed up on a public drive? She didn't answer. Because there wasn't a good answer. Natalie looked around, searching for me. She scanned the room like I might emerge from the shadows for some final dramatic flourish. But I wasn't there. That moment wasn't for me. It was for her. Let her feel the stillness. Let her hear the quiet judgment, the art world's silence that hits harder than booze. I wanted her to live in the gallery of her own decisions. Around 9 o'clock, the exhibit cleared out. Some left early, awkwardly murmuring something about powerful themes or raw emotionalism. Others stayed just long enough to see how far she'd sink. Natalie stood there, alone, long after they left. According to my guy, she stared at the poor baby piece for almost 20 minutes. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just stood still. And here's the part that might surprise you. I didn't enjoy it. Not the way you'd think. I didn't high-five myself or pop champagne. I just sat in my living room, scrolling through the pictures, watching the reactions, sipping whiskey like it was an antidote to memory. Because revenge doesn't heal you. It just closes the loop. And in that loop, Natalie was finally caught. No escape route. No clever edit. Just the truth, blown up, framed, and shared with the world she once ruled. By midnight, I got a message. It was from her. Why are you doing this? I stared at it. Typed, then deleted. Then typed again. Because I used to love you. And now? I just want you to see what I saw. Sunday morning came like a whisper after a thunderstorm. No calls. No emails. No messages, except the one she'd sent the night before. Why are you doing this? I hadn't answered anything beyond the truth. A short message, 12 words long. It felt like enough. It was enough. But I knew her. And silence wasn't a language Natalie spoke fluently. At 9:47 a.m., the doorbell rang. I didn't move right away. Just sat at the kitchen table, drinking black coffee that had long gone cold. I waited another minute before opening the door. There she stood. Natalie. Same face, new expression. Something between shame and defiance. Hair tied back in a tight bun. Dressed in all black, like she came from a funeral, and maybe, in a way, she had. Can we talk? She asked. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in slowly, cautiously, like my living room had grown teeth in her absence. Nice place, she said, looking around. New couch. I nodded once. One that doesn't remember you. That shut her up for a second. She sat on the edge of the couch, her fingers tapping her knees like a metronome keeping time with her unraveling thoughts. I don't even know where to start, she said. I did. Try the beginning. She blinked at me. Logan. No rehearsed monologue, I said. No artist statement. Just talk. Her mouth opened, then closed. Then finally, I didn't expect you to actually go through with it. The exhibit. I noticed. You embarrassed me. In front of everyone. Correction, I said, leaning back in my chair. You embarrassed yourself. I just provided the lighting. She flinched at that one. Not a big flinch, just a little twitch in her cheek. Like she wasn't used to being seen without a filter. I don't know why I did it, she whispered. The affair. Him. It wasn't love. It wasn't even connection. It was just different. Different? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Like a vacation package? New destination, same luggage. Her lips tightened. It felt like I could be someone else for a while. Someone who didn't wake up next to the same steady heartbeat every day. I stared at her. And I suppose I should feel flattered you found me so consistent. No, she said. I mean, I know I wrecked this. I know I did. But you didn't have to destroy me back. Destroy you. I repeated. Natalie, I gave you a gallery. I did what you've been doing your whole life. I showed the world what you framed out. She looked away. You always had a way with words. And you always had a way of making the truth look like drama. The silence that followed was thick. Not awkward. Not angry. Just waited. Finally, she asked, was this your plan all along? No, I said. My plan was Lily's at the airport and dinner at home. But you walked off holding another man's hand like I was yesterday's laundry. So yeah, plans changed. She nodded. Slowly. Like each syllable of truth added 5 pounds to her shoulders. Did you love me? She asked after a long pause. It hit me harder than expected. Not because of the question, but because she sounded afraid of the answer. Yes, I said quietly. And that's the only reason this hurt enough to make me act. She swallowed hard. Her voice, when it came, was smaller than I'd ever heard it. And now? Now? That was the question, wasn't it? I stood up and walked toward the window. Watched a kid ride by on a scooter. Watched a woman walk her dog in silence. The world kept turning, even when mine had stopped. Now, I said, I don't love you. But I remember the man who did. She didn't speak. Thing is, I added, that man was loyal, kind, maybe a little boring to you, but he gave you everything. And you treated him like a temporary roommate with decent credit. I was unhappy. You were unsatisfied, I said, turning back to her. There's a difference. One you never learned to tell apart. And instead of talking to me like a partner, you ran to a stranger with good bone structure and espresso breath. Her eyes welled up. Not in a dramatic, mascara-streaked way. Just enough to tell me the words landed. What do you want from me now? She asked. An apology? To disappear? What? I don't want anything, I said, shrugging. I got what I needed. And what was that? I picked up my coffee. Took a long sip. Bitter as regret. Closure, I said. The kind you frame and hang on a wall. She nodded. Then stood. Well, she whispered. You got it. And then some. She walked toward the door, hand on the handle, when she paused. For what it's worth, she said, not looking back. He's already gone. I didn't flinch. That's the problem, I said. You still think that matters to me. She opened the door, stepped outside. Didn't slam it. Didn't look back. Just walked down the steps in silence, the same silence she'd tried to leave me with. But now? Now it was hers. After Natalie left, the house went still again. Not the awkward silence of something unresolved, but the kind of quiet that feels earned. Like the final note of a symphony that holds in the air, vibrating just long enough for you to feel it settle in your bones. I stood by the door for a while. Listening. To what? Nothing in particular. The fridge humming. The wind moving leaves on the porch. The absence of her voice, her heels on the hardwood, her sighs that used to fill this space with judgment dressed as boredom. It was gone now. She was gone. And something strange happened in the hours that followed. I started laughing. Not loud, not maniacal, just a slow, rising chuckle from the pit of my stomach. Because all that pain, all that fury, it had finally deflated. The balloon popped. And now it was just air. She'd always said I didn't know how to express myself. Well, I'd finally figured it out. Turns out, all I needed was a public exhibit and a gallery of lies. The next few weeks were a montage of rebuilding, less emotional growth, and more burn it down, build new. I got rid of the sheets. The plates. The wedding china we never used. I repainted the bedroom. Navy blue. Something that didn't hold the memory of her perfume. I deleted every photo of us. Not in some bitter rage, but like cleaning out a storage unit. One click at a time. Delete. Delete. Gone. She texted once more. You really think this makes you the better person? I didn't reply. Not because I didn't have a comeback. Believe me, I had a folder's worth. But because I realized something. I didn't need her to understand me anymore. That was the whole trap, wasn't it? Wanting clarity from someone who specialized in distortion. So I made a new rule. If someone breaks your heart, don't wait for them to explain why. Let the wreckage speak for itself. Now, here's where things got satisfying. See, I didn't just want her embarrassed. I wanted the truth to linger in her shadow. Follow her like cologne she couldn't scrub off. So I filed a lawsuit. Not for infidelity. This isn't 1925. But for misuse of joint funds. Turns out, she'd charged 2 luxury hotel stays and 3 international flights to a shared business account registered in both our names. I had documentation, receipts, timestamps, and emails from her to her travel companion that included lines like, "Just use the card, he never checks." Guess what? I started checking. The court date was quiet, brief, and brutal. She settled before it even got to trial. Paid me back in full, plus a penalty, plus lawyer fees. And the cherry on top? The story made it into a niche photography blog. Just one post, but enough to travel. The same crowd that toasted her at the exhibit started quietly distancing themselves. Suddenly, Natalie wasn't a mysterious, tortured artist. She was a cautionary tale. Months passed. Not much changes all at once when you rebuild from ashes. It's slow, uneven, but something beautiful happens when you stop waiting for someone to come back. You start arriving for yourself. I went on a trip, solo. No photos, no posts. Just me, a suitcase, and the sweet smell of a place where no one had ever said, "I'm not in love with you anymore." I stood at a lookout in Iceland one morning, coffee in hand, watching the mist roll in over a cliff. And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I didn't feel haunted. No flashbacks, no fantasies, just sky. That's when I knew the story was over. Not because she said it was, but because I finished it. And not just with words. With action, with backbone, with clarity so sharp it cut the last thread she ever had on me. Natalie once said I was too steady, like I was the human equivalent of beige wallpaper. But here's the thing about wallpaper. It holds the whole damn room together. And when you peel it off to chase neon lights, you realize too late that the structure was never the color. It was the foundation. So no, I didn't just survive being cheated on. I outgrew it. And in the end, she walked out with a suitcase and a stranger. I walked away with my dignity and the truth. Guess who slept better?